I've got a couple of things in my mind, and we'll try and get them both out today that I want to cover. We're going to have, as I said, a Q&A later on after lunch. I want to talk a little bit about finance. How many think that's a good idea? Because with finance, there's such a challenge. I'm going to leave that and sort of try and fit that in here into the Q&A. But I am currently, as Pastor Obed was saying, I'm writing a book called God, Money, and Me. And it really comes out of a lifetime of being in the church. And I was only really taught the principle of sowing. We've got to be very careful that we don't embrace, if we're going to create a financial health in people and a pathway, it's got to be a whole lot more than just teaching about giving. In fact, I would never in our church simply do a series around giving. It's always about creating a financial pathway. Because giving is only one aspect. In fact, I teach in our church, you can tithe and live in poverty. And the trouble is most of us are teaching that. If you tithe, everything is going to turn around. But all you're doing is baking your bread with flour. Could be a major ingredient, but it's got no rise in it. I know I'm anointed because it's coming to me on the fly. No, seriously. You know, people sit there going, I want to do it God's way, but I can't. We have more people come to church when I talk on giving than any other series. We have more people saved than any other series because it's not about giving. Giving is one component. And we're teaching a generosity culture. Anyway, I didn't want to get onto it first thing. Rather than, come on, a pathway culture. And how many would rather me do, what would you rather me do? Something on culture or something on money? Yeah, money. Yeah, money. All right, let's go. All right, we'll change it. It is in my heart. I love it. All right, let's go there for a moment. Let me give to you keys to effective leadership as a forerunner to this. You've got to be good with vision clarity. Write this down. You want to build some effective ministry, you've got to be good with vision clarity. Just because you've got a vision doesn't mean you've got vision clarity. By the way, most people have a, what do they call it on the wall, a mission statement. That's all it is. Because if it's your mission statement, everything around you echoes it. Otherwise, it's just writing on a wall. So let's think about that vision clarity. You've got to spend more time on vision than anything else. And you don't have clarity till you're hearing it back. Second thing, you're about leadership alignment. Vision clarity, leadership alignment. Just because somebody's come to work with you doesn't mean there's alignment. Leadership alignment, very important. In fact, the word alignment is another huge concept. We need to teach people to get healthy body, soul, and spirit. True? This is another great message, leadership message coming. It's kind of like, you're not doing well. Get two of them healthy, the third one will come along. So if you can get your spirit man healthy, your physical man healthy, your soul man will come along. Come on, get your soul man healthy, physical healthy, you're a believer in God, you'll want to do more spiritually. Get two out of the three working, and it's going to liberate you. So you need vision clarity, you need leadership alignment, you need effective management. You're not going to build anything without effective management. Oh, we've heard from God. We're clear about what we want to do. Yeah, well, what's the pathway? You can't teach finance unless you've got a pathway. Effective management. You're not a good manager? Make sure you got good management systems around you. You can have all the spirit in the world. If you don't have the right structure, the spirit will overflow the bowl and you'll never retain it long term. It's God and man while it's on planet Earth. Wise stewardship. Wise stewardship. Come on, God is testing the stewardship of what you've already got to discern whether you're ready for more. If you're not a wise steward with what you have today, the Bible's full of examples about how, and in our leadership, we should be teaching these things. If you're not a wise steward, why would you have more? And then the third one would be financial release. Financial release. Without money released, we're going to be restricted in what we can see happen. Again, I think I used this verse with the business owners here at Destiny in the weekend. 2 Corinthians 9 verse 8, God is able to make all grace abound toward you. God is able to make all grace abound toward you, that you always having all sufficiency in all things may have an abundance for every good work. Okay, so if you say to me, I've got what I need, you ain't. The church should be positioned, every individual should be in a place, listen to this, where we have an abundance for every good work. Wherever we see a good work, we have an abundance. As a church in life in New Zealand, in a poverty-stricken place where churches wouldn't even pay enough for an airfare for a visiting speaker, we are determined that we're going to have a breakthrough in money. So our goal by 2020 is not just to have all our buildings paid for now. It's to release 20 million per annum as the minimum every year in a community need. So if you come into life, it's not like we're just building these buildings. It's not all about us. We are going to be, not necessarily the largest, it would be the largest, but we are going to be one of the most significant ministries that are going to help people in need in our community. That's where we're going. So that means we need money. You might say, well, we got enough money. No. Have you got enough money for every good work? Okay, how many people in your church right now are working where they're working because they're called to work there, not because of the money associated? So seriously, what I would contend, and we're on this journey, is if you're making your decisions based on money, then you are not in the liberated space that God designed you to live with. If we could get it right in one generation, the next generation, if they adhered to the principle, would not make any decisions according to money. Money would never be the issue, and we would be liberated in a new level of revival like the world has never seen. That's how much. You can't just preach this. Well, God is able to make all grace to abound you always having all sufficiency. By the way, what's sufficiency? It's what is needed for the degree of the God call on your life. Sufficiency is not, well, I just got bread, that's all I need with some little peanut butter on it. It's like, whatever you're called to do, you're going to have enough for that. But not only will you have enough to do what you're there to do, you're going to move from fruitful to multiplying. You're actually going to be sending checks to other churches in the same location where you are. It's amazing the response we got back from pastors in our city early years when we were there, and we sent them all a Christmas card, over 250 in the greater Auckland area. Hey, dear Pastor so-and-so, we trust that you have a great Christmas. We know what ministry's like. It's never really that easy. Some of them hated us for being there, all kinds of things. We just thought, you and your spouse, if you're married, need to go out, have a meal, look across the table and say, yep, there's been a lot of challenges this year, but it's not all bad. Here's a check for $200 for you and your spouse to go and have a meal. To me, it's no big deal. But you've got to activate your multiplying spirit if you want to see dominion take place in your city. Anyway, write this down. I direct money or money directs me. I direct money or money directs me. The challenge is for all of us that we actually go to a new level when it comes to money. So let me give you 5 things really as something to help you maybe start thinking about it, talking about it. What I'm doing with the God, Money, and Me, it's going to be a 5 kind of session. It's going to be for small groups, and churches might want to show it. I'm actually going to communicate for 25 minutes to a camera on it with a whole workshop manual, because we've seen, by the way, I taught on it last year in our church, which is a very good money-giving church now. Our annual offering this year was $5.2 million. That's over and above their general giving. And we've had a 25% increase in our weekly income in this last 12 months. Not about giving more, it's about creating a financial pathway. So here's 5 key leadership responsibilities when it comes to money. Number 1, understand firstly the authority of money. Understand the authority of money. Gain a revelation that money controls people. Did you know that money has no spirit attached to it until it touches a human hand? The moment it touches a human hand, it's one of 2 things. It either becomes mammon or it becomes kingdom release. Do you know that mammon is not impartial and does not influence, it manipulates. So therefore, if we don't put God's stamp on the money that comes our way, we're in for a great challenge. We had a key evangelist coming through. Greg, he's in California here. Laurie, coming through to New Zealand. And, you know, they paid for a lot in New Zealand. We had a whole group of Auckland churches coming together, and we had a pre-crusade meeting with churches. 2,500 people turned out, and they took up an offering. These were Christian people before the crusade, toward the crusade. And of course, we didn't actually have many of our church people there because we only heard about it last minute. But I was there, and I asked the people afterwards. I said, "How'd the offering go tonight for the campaign?" They said, "Oh, actually pretty good, $4,000." I go, "What? $4,000?" So that's basically $2 a person. We want to see our city change, but you know, we'll give you the cream cost for our coffee. And we say we're ready for a move of God. Come on, we're going to understand the authority of money over your people. You can tell them, you can preach every day, you know what, we're going to change the city. You know, we're going to take the authority in the name of Christ. But you know what God they're under? It's kind of like, so when you begin to realize that, it's kind of like, we're going to change that. John Calvin put it like this, John Calvin, where riches hold the dominion of the heart, God has lost his authority. Where riches hold the dominion of the human heart, God has lost his authority. So therefore, I've got a lot of people in our church that love God, believe in his word, have a quiet time every day, but riches still control the dominion of their heart. Proverbs 22, verse 7, the rich rules over the poor. Come on, the servant or the borrower is servant to the lender. It's kind of going on and on and on. Money is so much. Where your treasure is what? Not where your heart is, your treasure is. It's the other way around. It's kind of like, so I've got to realize that and realize that money directs people. And so therefore, money or issues related to it is the number one attack on the church. We're in a human world. And so I just want to encourage you, because when I began to think like this, that, you know, I've got to understand the authority of money. Money has got a louder voice than what we realize. So you can get up and do your 5-minute little or 2-minute little testimony about give to the church. Most people have got other voices in their head. And if they're not doing it God's way, I can tell you there's another spirit attached to them. And so we've got to understand that. And when people say, well, you know, you shouldn't teach about money in the church, it's kind of like, well, we went to New Zealand, Maria and I, and key pastors told me there's 2 major issues here in New Zealand in the church. One is leadership. Don't teach leadership strong, because in New Zealand, people are happy to do it. They just don't want to be told. And the second thing is money. Don't touch money. So what do we say? Well, if we're going to build the kingdom here, the 2 things we're going to learn more about, teach more on. Now, we're not teaching on manipulation, and we're not teaching on dumb money stuff. You know, I'm looking across the globe now. There's not a lot of good money stuff. It's either very weak or it's actually, do this, God's going to do that. You don't buy God. We're going to get something that's principally based, that creates a pathway for people. But seriously, you know, we had this happen to us. We were doing baby dedications, and one of the couples heard that I was beginning, I think this was last year or the year before, starting our series on money, and they found out, and they said, oh no, my mum, of course, is coming for the first time to church, and she always tells us, I hate that churches talk about money. And we got the baby dedication. What do we do? And we basically said, I heard it secondhand, we basically said, well, let your mum know. And yet I would say she'll come, and actually it may be the very thing she needs to hear. So she came. We had 6 weeks on it. Do you know what? Never been in church before. Stayed for the entire 6 weeks. Because we weren't talking about giving. We were talking about stuff that made sense. I had an email after last year's teaching on God, money, and me from someone who's been in the banking industry for 23 years. Said, I have never learned what I've learned in the last 6 weeks about how money operates, what money does, what it doesn't do. It makes sense. It's helped me in my profession and my career. Thank you for being unapologetic about money. Money is stopping you from moving into the promise that God has for you. Money is stopping the people in your church from being able to put God first and other things. So I think this is something you've got to throw around. Understand the authority of money. Second thing, develop a generosity culture. I think most churches today, by and large, are teaching generosity. It's kind of like if you're not generous, then how can God be generous to you? You know, a generous man devises generous things. By his generosity, he will stand. Actually, there is something about generosity. Let me just go there for a moment. In light of the last message, most of us as pastors are asking people to stop being selfish, aren't we? And have a bigger spirit. Embrace the vision of our church. Come on. Well, you know what God's doing? Why don't you embrace the vision of me for your city? And have a generous spirit. So what's one lesson I could take from this? Think about the people that are at most conflict in ministry circles in your area and just sow something into their lives. Well, they don't deserve it. You don't deserve what God gave you. Neither do I. Come on. But you have to develop this generosity. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. Whatever a man sows, he will reap. Philip's Bible puts it like this. Your life depends on what you sow. I love that translation. It's kind of like, okay, so I've got to have a spirit of generosity. Marie and I went on a journey when it came to money because I was only taught to give. So I believe in generosity, always being generous. In fact, we had a 5-year plan at one stage that we would increase every year. We got up to giving 37% of our gross income. And it was just like a cool ride. It was just like amazing to see what that generosity would produce. But in that, God was beginning to speak to us and saying that, hey, with that sowing, there needs to be a response. In your churches, if you want a generosity culture within your church, are you generous to your leaders? Well, they're serving God. Yeah, and they're serving the vision through you. Like in our church, we've never been able to afford it. But every year, we, at the end of the year, do something special for all our leaders. We've often, or a couple of times, we've hired the Auckland Zoo. And we've invited leaders, their family, Christian or non-family, to come out for an event. We put on a meal for everyone, put red carpet into the zoo, whole complex, and they come through and we just say, thank you for a year where you've served. I get up before the meal, pray for the meal, Marie and I, and just say, hey, we want to thank everybody that's been involved in the vision here at Life. And many of you, some of you not even in church, it's just cool that you would give time to let people in your world that you love to invest into something that we believe is important. Well, tonight we've got a great meal for you. And then everyone's going, wow, what do we pay? We love you. And on the way out, we get a nice box of chocolates for everybody walking out. All of our staff stand on the either side of the red carpet, clap them, all coming in. One year we stood there for an hour and a half, clapping every person that came in. And on the way out, thank you again for an incredible year. Once a month, we have our leaders' night called Heart and Soul Nights. We always put on supper for them at our expense. It's kind of like, you know what, you're giving of yourself. It's like, well, you know, we don't have the money to do it. Hey, we're talking about creating a culture. People aren't going to do what you say. They're going to do what you do. Understand the authority of money. Come on, get a revelation on that, and you'll approach it like a demon. It's like this demon needs to come down. 2, develop a generosity of culture, a generosity culture. 3, teach on money, not just giving. Teach on money. People need to want to understand what it's all about. As I said, you know, when you teach something that people go, wow, I never understood that like that before. And you go, well, I wouldn't know how to teach that. Well, then find out from others that are finding out and begin to embrace the fact that money is such a big part of who we are. Our motivation for teaching, by the way, is not to get more in the offering. Well, it's not meant to be that. It's actually first meant to be to unlock people in a world that's restricting and constricting them. And so therefore we've got to look at how we do that and what that means to be living that out. So teach on money, not just giving. So very briefly, I was 38. Marie, we're the same age. I'm slightly older than her. Been in church my whole life. All I was taught was giving. So you know what? We gave every time. Every time we saved up for a deposit for a house or anything like that, there was always a building thing. So we gave it. My view was, hey, I'm only on earth for how many years, and we're in eternity to enjoy this. So I was so convinced that the kingdom was worth it. Then I began to realize that the Bible says that we should actually have an inheritance to our children's children. Well, I was giving everything away, and it's kind of like, how do you do this? I had somebody ask me when we had our annual offering, one of our key team members on staff, you know, Pastor, we'd love to get a house one day. This is only, say, 10 years ago. But we want to give every more to the annual offering. How do we do the both? You got to teach on money, not just giving. So I just dug into God's word, and I realized some things I never realized before. The tithe is not my giving. The tithe is not seed. Yeah, that's what we're saying all the time. Come on. You sow for harvest. No. The tithe is a test. Whether you will obey God by returning to him what was his. This is what happens. When money hits your hand, it's got two spirits waiting to be attached. If you don't first, not second, not fourth, not 10th, if you don't first put aside the tithe for God, mammon attaches itself to it. So you've got to start teaching that. So if I don't bring that to God, this is the test. The devil wants to have the lordship over my material world. If he can't get my spiritual world, he wants to actually cloud in and constrict the spiritual world with the material world. So when it comes, it's not like, well, I've got to pay the bills of the church. No. This is a test that God has given me so much. I'm going to honor him and reject the spirit of mammon on this. Then you've got to consider that God's given us the principle, Malachi 3, you've robbed me in tithes and offerings. The offering is where the harvest is unlocked. Tithe is where the protection comes. But you're going to actually unlock harvest by the amount of seed. So you need a seeding percentage. And then with the seeding percentage, you need to build your future. And then you got to live. So here's the dilemma. If I honor God with my 10th, I only can live on 90%. Yeah, but God's blessing is over you. Protection is over you. The enemy's not going to destroy it. God can do more with 90 than 10, but actually you can do a lot more with 20, because that's where you unlock harvest. So I teach our church this. The ultimate goal for most of us, first 10th belongs to God's house, not to a missionary, not to something at our discretion. This is God's decision. It goes to the house. I would like us to get to a place where 10% is seed. Wherever you feel to do it. Might be a building project, might be a missionary, might be somebody next door needs a new carpet. Might be some kid at school that you're at school with. You got something where you can buy them lunch with. You got seed. But whatever your seed percentage is, there needs to be a mirrored percentage in investment that you'll never consume. That's what's going to go on generationally. Then you live on the rest. So if you said to me, well, I'm a businessman, I used to tithe 10%, live on 90%, I'm going to tithe 90%, live on 10%. Flawed theology. You can't tithe 90%, it's only 10%. And I would suggest it's a dumb way to live. Why would it be a dumb way to live? I've got a lot of money. I'm talking about giving 90% away. I said, why would you park there? Why wouldn't you actually match the investment of seed to the investment of growing your net ability so that you can give more tomorrow? Well, I'm in debt, Pastor. Okay. So this is the goal. You might not get there in the first hop, but the first 10th, you honor God. You remove the spirit of mammon. Then you say, let's have 2% that's going to go into an account that's called seed money. And you get the discretion on where you use that. Then you have another 2%. You match that, which is going to go to paying your debts off. Or in the future, into a house that you're not going to use to go on a trip with. It's going to go generationally. Or you're going to invest into greater ways to make money, and then you're going to live off the rest. So you're going to make it 14%, you're going to live off 86%. If you've got a lot of money, I'd be suggesting you don't live 10, 10, 10, 70. You'd live 10, 20, 20, 50. 10, 30, 30, 30. Come on, that you'd live on 30%, but you'd keep putting money, investing into the future of your net worth to go to the generation. If we were to do that in one generation, the next generation, if they continued on that, would already have their house provided for, would already have the principal in tow, and there would be more money in the kingdom. Come on. Anyway. But if you don't teach, my point is, again, not just on money, teach on money rather than just on giving, then everyone becomes a believer. Man, so my situation could change. Absolutely, it could change. Realize that that is what it is. So teach on money, not just giving. Cool? Number 4. Realize we impart what we model. We impart what we model. Okay, so that's where the problem often exists, is that the leaders of a ministry are talking about something they don't do. Do you know what I call that? I call that a signpost. It doesn't influence anything. I'm not a signpost. I will be a signpost on numbers of things that I haven't sort of got into me yet. But you know, the thing that makes the change in somebody is not the signpost. It's the Spirit. So every week, are you considering above your tithing what you're going to bring? Because if you begin to live that out, whether you say it or not, osmosis says anybody within the context of your spirit will start to breathe in who you are, not just what you do. So it comes back down to my philosophy of life. For too many years, I was trying to be everything, do everything, attain everything. I'm not like that now. It's just like, I need to make a shift, but hey, there's 10 things I've got to do. I'm just going to take 1 or 2 of those and see if we can master that. Because not only then will I be fruitful in that, I'll multiply that into others, and collectively we'll have dominion. So really, seriously, come on. Don't start asking people to do what you're not prepared to do. So if you can learn that I felt like literal dirt after 38 when Marie and I started to understand this and teach us. You know, our kids now, a lot of our kids at life, they've got 4 jars by their beds. They get $10. That's God's. I can use that wherever I feel to use it. That seed releases and unlocks harvest. That I will never touch the rest of my life. That may be the deposit of our first house. We'll enjoy the benefit. But that will never diminish. That will only increase. And we're going to have $7 to spend as we want. My brother's son, he's 16. I think he's got something like $5,000 in his investment jar already. Not only that, $5,000 he's already seeded, which has helped. Maybe not 5,000, but a portion of that has helped him get to 5,000 in this one. See what I mean? And they're just living principle lives, because if you start early, you do it. But what I'm saying is, don't let's start teaching stuff we're not doing. Otherwise, people are going to get frustrated, because they're going to look at the signpost and they're going to get down the road and they go, what happens now? And you're going to go, I don't know. You might not say it like that. I don't know, because I've never been there myself. I think we've got an authority to speak on money, because, mate, we've been through it. We gave everything away up to 38 years. And we haven't fully recovered what could have been, but boy, have things changed, as now we're setting up for the generations to follow us. Plus, we're giving more to the kingdom than we've ever been able to give before. So come on, let's realize again in this area, we impart only what we model. It's not the other way around. And by the way, if I were to ask you, if everybody did what you did when it came to money, how would your church look? But I don't have much. Wouldn't you say that to the person with not much? You don't have to stay there. There's a way to walk through this valley. There's a way. I love Deuteronomy 8:18. You shall remember the Lord your God. Come on. For it is He who gives. No. It is He who gives you power. It doesn't come. The width of your channel, the width of the flow. To get wealth. Hey, to get wealth, why? That He may establish His covenant. to your fathers, as he swore to your fathers, as it is this day. I love that. You know, it's not about this get rich, be big, live over. Hey, listen, you do it God's way, you're going to be blessed. But it's not about you. I want to multiply. I want to, what was the first one? Fruitful. I want to be fruitful. Yeah. It's not about, you got to cheat. There has to be this outlet. Do you know, our financial leaders, I've got to get back on track. Our financial leaders right now, of which we've got about 100 plus, people that say we have a gift of giving and we give to all sorts of things, but our primary vessel is the vision that God's given all of us here at Life. I had a meeting with them just a few weeks ago, and it was like our first goal was, I felt God say, believe that by 2020, the 23 million would come off. It happened in a year because we gave the steering wheel back. Now I'm going, okay, God, is there something more? And I really felt God, not just naturally, I felt God say, you've got to believe that the new build in Central by 2020, into 2020, the 50 million it's going to cost to build it is going to be paid for. And you just go, how can that happen in New Zealand? So I go, God, give us a strategy, et cetera, et cetera. So I get our financial leaders together, and I'm going like this, hey, guys, Marie and I want to invite you on a journey with us. Where instead of doing an annual money gift, according to where we're at, we're going to go to God, all of us, and ask what part of the 50 million we're to carry. There's going to be people in this room, somebody's going to find 10 million. Well, that's never happened in the course of New Zealand. But we've never seen what we're seeing now in the course of New Zealand. Some of you are going to have 5 million. You're going to actually make business decisions because for you, one of the major legacy deposits you're going to leave throughout your entire life is not just to have something for your children's children, but you're going to build the church. And I believe if we achieve this by 2020, we will never have to go into debt again. We'll be able to do it with the momentum of who we are. So the 20 million for the community will just be the beginning figure. Now, that's not for everybody, but I have faith for that. And I would just say, where does that begin? That begins with us. So I can look at what's happening, or I can believe that God is able. Come on. He is able to make all grace abound towards us. But therefore, I'm not asking you to be thwarted by the 50 million. I'm asking you to go to God and say, God, what do you want me to do? What do you want to do through me when it comes to this? When that begins to happen, something begins to shift. So important. You know, by the way, we fail to see financial growth when we don't seed harvest, when we accommodate destructive debt, when we don't embrace a strong work ethic, when we have no developing investment plan, when we haven't instituted financial accountability. Why is it we should be accountable for every other area of our life, but don't talk to me about my finance? When we buy into a quick rich scheme, how many church people, oh, God spoke to me. It was just an email from Africa. We don't give to the poor or somewhere else. We don't give to the poor. Did you know that you don't give to the poor, you don't have the blessing of God on your finances? Mm-hmm. When we go guarantor for a friend, it's not just because we didn't tie it with. When we allow money to make life-determining situations, when we forget that perseverance creates a pathway. Will you tithe? We get the person that just started tithing and in a month had a money increase, and we put them up on the platform and say, look at that, isn't that amazing? How dumb can we get? Because it doesn't happen like that for everybody. Teach perseverance on God's way. We'll break through. That can be a part of the picture, but don't let it be the main frame. Oh, understand the authority of money. Develop a generosity culture. Some of us are doing that. Teach on money, not just giving. Realize we impart what we model. And here's the final one. Create a participation pathway. Create a participation pathway. 8% of the population are self-starters. 8% of the population are self-starters. I don't care how good you preached. I don't care how much revelation you've got. 92% of the people hearing what you're saying, even though they go, oh my gosh. If you don't teach them a pathway, you bring them no change. You don't wake up an Olympian. It may be in you, but you don't wake up. So please teach people, okay, how do we go? I believe in our church. I believe fundamentally most of us are called to live a 10-10-10-70 life. You've done well in finances, it's far more than that. But you have most people say, I couldn't give 10% and survive. I go, no, 10% is where the line's drawn. So start with 1% seed and 1% investment. So instead of 10% and I'm living on 90, I have to live on 88, I could get that. And you get them going, and the moment they're doing it, they've got something to bless someone else with. Come on. They've got something that's paying their debt off. Create a pathway. In all your preaching, create a pathway. Because most times we put it up there. People go, I know God said I could do it, but man, I can't even get 1 foot in the air, let alone 5 feet. Make sure that you create a pathway. Don't swing from one thing to the other. Come on. Oil the gate before you swing it open. In Jesus' name.